Max, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Jack. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. Max, for people who don't know who you are, could you give us a bit of an introduction, please?
Sure. I'm Maxim Legg. I'm the CEO and founder of Pangea. Um, my background is a technical background. Sort of gone from PhD dropout to working in forensics and then into investment banking, where I then got my start in crypto back in 2016. So I was basically uh, technical lead, head of the innovation lab, basically working on all the new projects. And then following that, I worked for a couple of startups, built my own sort of crypto mining pool, which was a really great experience. Unfortunately, the chain didn't survive. And then just started working on different projects for different companies, some startups, some more corporate, building all types of infrastructure, doing a lot of operational work like managing nodes, building wallets, building all the back end infrastructure to effectively support user experiences. And that's ultimately where Pangea came from. It's like, how do we actually solve this problem for all the builders in the space and allow them to basically deliver to their users? And I think the industry is still extremely nascent, and we still have a lot of those issues in terms of user experience. But that is the core problem that Pangea is aiming to solve. And yeah, we coined Pangea a few years back. Started initially with Bitcoin, went into Ethereum, and then today we're sort of fairly agnostic as to the chain and even the technology as well, whether it's blockchain or AI. Actually, for us, our core offering is something that complements all types of resource sharing using blockchain as that main orchestration layer.
Yeah, nice. I was going to ask you if you could introduce us to Pangea in a little bit more detail, if you could.
Sure. Yeah, so Pangea is this supercontinent of sort of Web3 infrastructure, where we're actually leveraging the benefits of the chain to solve some of the bigger problems out there. So when it comes to protocols or chains, um, building applications for end users, there's always some friction there. There's always like a mix of different technologies that you'd want to that you could use, and it's up to the chains to really choose those for their protocols. And then the protocols ultimately 80% of the time are reinventing the wheel, rebuilding all of these technologies basically from scratch, because uh, the ability to go end to end from the chain all the way through to the end user is, um, you know, it's very technical, but it also is labored with lots of speed, performance issues, which ultimately leads to you using a DApp and it's slowing down completely. So Pangea, the idea there is that we effectively make that whole process seamless. We're using a peer-to-peer network. This is completely decentralized, so no central points of failure, which is one of the big issues you have today. It's a resilient network. And the idea is that we can co-locate and stream our data, our services across the network to whoever cares to use it. And yeah, this ultimately supports great user experiences from reading data from the chain within 100 milliseconds. So it's really like in the blink of an eye, really quick and responsive, to doing large data visualizations, looking for alpha on the chain, looking at the differences between chains. So this is ultimately how we can service those protocols.
Nice, nice. Are there a few similar projects at the moment that are building similar sorts of things to you guys, or do you guys take a bit of more of a different view to that like orchestration layer to others?
Sure. Yeah, so the market is ultimately crypto infrastructure, which, as we're seeing traditional finance move in with all the ETFs, we're also seeing real world assets, stable coins come into the space. Infrastructure is extremely important. And using technologies like all the main incumbents, like you have Alchemy, you have the Graph, but you also have lots and lots, like you have like hundreds of providers offering different specializations across the different offerings out there. Now, Pangea is a means of offering this as like a buffet menu. So when we're looking at the market, we're seeing it as growing because of the influx of new business coming in. Stablecoins is big business right now. Using Ethereum as your bank account, lots of L2s, Base is coming in, really bullish on what they're doing with regards to linking that back to a central exchange. So we're having that sort of seamless integration come through. And then we're obviously looking at this sort of white label products that are coming out to support you as a business launching your token as a, say, real world asset. You now have the full support of DeFi, you have the support of different money markets and all of the different global capabilities you have as a business. So if you wanted to start a business, let's say in the UK, you're limited to that market more or less. You then have all the different barriers and you're subjected to your sort of foreign policy. But on chain, actually, you don't have those issues anymore. It's more or less, okay, I'll keep the paperwork, but ultimately no one's going to stop me from transacting. Right. So this is like the power of crypto, and we see that growing massively. To support it with infrastructure, we're seeing a lot of cracks appearing with these centralized, more cloud-based infrastructure offerings, whereas Pangea is working from the ground up. We're working from a decentralized layer first, so all the validators in our network are running our software, and they are coordinating all of their resources. Effectively, we're using the protocol to orchestrate everyone, to keep the quality of service high, which is something that has traditionally been cost engineered down to, let's say, a poor service or a service that has office hours, right? We're here to basically build something that's going to be up 100% of the time. It's going to be resilient. And if you wanted all the data in the world, well, you can just ask for it and it will be delivered because there is resources there for you. And it's about finding the ability not just to consolidate into one large data center, it's about building a pool of disparate resources that would previously compete with one another to actually work together to build a bigger pie. And that's ultimately what we're doing. We're sort of fighting for the small guy, punching up against like the behemoths in the industry. And that's ultimately the philosophy of Pangea, is that, what can we do to enable our network operators to actually compete and deliver the highest quality services that ultimately developers want to use, right? This is something where I'm building an application. I don't want it to be slow. I don't want it to have downtime. And I want it to be supported on day one with all of the nice tools out of the box, right? And that's ultimately where we see ourselves.
Nice. So rather than, say, if you're building a protocol, rather than going to like a bunch of different providers for different tools and different things, you guys are building that like one-stop shop to enable builders to like build way more easily than they've had the opportunity to before.
Yeah, and I think it's more about making sure that the lowest level, which is in blockchain, it's RPC, which is the standard way to interface with blockchain, just to make sure that that is reliable. Because what we're seeing is all of the builders we work with, they all need to use RPC. They all want to use RPC. They don't want to use anything that's abstracted on top of that, right? And that was our business, right? Streaming really nice index data. You can do anything with it you want, but ultimately, if the RPC was an issue, and for every protocol that's built anything, that RPC has always been the issue. It's an issue for the biggest companies in the space. They spend, tens of thousands a month on infrastructure just to support their killer application, which obviously makes business sense. But it shouldn't be that way, because, if you're starting a new project today and you're building, let's say, on somebody's nice API, and that API goes down because of RPC, you see this every day. The trust levels are going to disappear. So if now you're able to secure and build something that's resilient from the ground up, adding layers of abstraction on top of that is actually quite easy to do. There's nothing special about indexing the data on top of that if the RPC is solid, because once you've got solid infrastructure, you can trust anything built on top of it. And if we provide a level of observability and you get that out the box with decentralized networks, that will then build the trust that's needed. So whatever needs to be built or hosted on our network can be. We just need to orchestrate that. Behind the scenes, we basically plumb that in. We dock it into our supercontinent, and we effectively get people to work together on that island. So
Sounds cool. And how far down the journey are you? You're in like DevNet phase, right?
yeah, sure. So we actually have products up and running out there at the moment. So we
Okay.
currently support Ethereum mainnet, Base, and some of the move chains like Aptos. What we are focusing on now is actually pushing all of that, like the goodness that we've built here, and building that level of trust from the ground up. So we have to basically offer access to the nodes in order to offer this higher level service. And where we're focusing actually is to fully decentralize where there are standards. So when we have RPC, that's a standard. Anyone can run a node and have RPC access. So why don't we run it on our network? And the best thing about that, what we've just proven from our DevNet, which we launched in July, is that we can beat the performance of running a node locally. So if you had a server running Ethereum mainnet with Ref, we can beat the performance of that by accessing our network and pulling those resources together. That's the power of decentralization, to have this high throughput, all you can eat data. And that obviously leans into, now I have resilience because I can pull the resources from wherever. So if I just wanted uptime, that's my focus. Or I wanted to know where is the latest block being produced, I can subscribe to the whole network. And those attributes, you don't necessarily have unless you go down a brute force approach. So for us, that whole idea of orchestration really solves that trust issue from the ground up, coordinating resources. And so now DevNet, we have just introduced, as of last week, we started to bring on other third-party providers to start running the network with us as well. This is still in DevNet phase. And this is proving to be like really nice because we're getting lots of really great feedback, ideas coming through. And, our operators are extremely excited about running and being part of this network because they run RPC services, indexing services for all their customers directly, right? They have issues of payments. They have issues of, okay, this customer's too small for us. Do I want to charge them or not? Or this customer is actually like it's a family office. I want to charge them a lot of money. But it's like, is a price discovery thing. They're now building a business, right? They're specialized in building data centers, really offering that high-end, like hosted services, but they have to do a lot of extra stuff on the side, whereas plugging into Pangea gives them distribution and a means of accepting payment for the work that they do. So yeah, people are really excited. We just hosted our first AMA last week, which went well. We'll be publishing that soon. It's recorded. And yeah, like the nice thing is like the types of use cases we're starting to solve, where we're mixing like the sort of high throughput RPC with indexing together really allows you to ask any type of question from the chain, which previously, you would have to go to, a service like Dune or build your own data warehouse on a cloud service, which obviously can become very expensive. Whereas this basically allows you to build in real time any type of data insights capability you want to do locally. So yeah, we're really excited about DevNet, and there's lots more features going to be released over the next few weeks, and next few months. We'll start to see more big releases.
Okay, nice. Are you able to like briefly touch on some of those releases, or are they industry trade secrets at the moment until they're live?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of trade secrets, but ultimately, we have published everything we do on our docs. So all the indexing services that we offer as a cloud, that's all going to be pushed onto our decentralized network. So from the end user's perspective, it will just be seamless. And if they want to upgrade and get the benefits of decentralization, they can run a client node on our network, and they get the throughput and the benefits that we're talking about in terms of resilience. At the moment, we can just host a HTTP endpoint, which is compatible with every other RPC or indexer provider out there. But actually, the benefit comes when you plug into the peer-to-peer network, because that's completely decentralized. There's no central party saying you can or cannot join this service, or you can and cannot do something. As long as you adhere to the rules of the protocol, everything's good.
Nice, nice. Sounds you've got a pretty exciting 6, 12, 24 months coming up. So yeah, keep me posted on how you guys get on. Was that's a
Cool.
super you've given us there like a super deep dive into what you guys are doing, and the overall protocol. I'd quite like to find out a little bit more about the people behind the protocol. I've got a few questions for you there, if that's okay.
Sure.
This might be quite a difficult question to answer. Could you give us a bit of a crash course? It sounds like you know a lot. Like obviously you've had a real strong like technical background. I understand you've taken that role as CEO now within Pangea. Could you give us a bit of a crash course on being a founder, being a CTO, being a CEO, and your experience of that over the last few years?
Sure. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. Obviously, sort of dipped my toe into startups prior to Pangea,
Yeah.
and it was quite fortunate because I built a mining pool with one of my current angel investors, and we worked together on that. And it didn't work out. The chain more or less sort of collapsed on itself. But ultimately, we had built that relationship, that bond, and when it came to sort of presenting the idea of like, hey, we've got this capability. It's not called Pangea yet. It's not called streaming services yet. It's just we're very capable. We know there's a problem there, and we're trying to find it. So basically, and you spend sort of 6 to 12 months sort of throwing the spaghetti against the wall, seeing what sticks, and at the same time we're sort of being coached into what actually matters, what actually excites people, because the narrative of what we're working on in terms of infrastructure was, it was top of the agenda at the time. It's like, okay, you can do stuff in this space, which is great. You've proven this before, which is also like a big plus. But who are you actually servicing? Who's your customer? Who is the end user? Why does it matter? Why is it so great for them? And those types of questions coming from a technical background, it's like your worst nightmare, right? It's like, oh, well, there's a customer, there's an end user, but I'm building technology. It's fun and interesting. To actually, this is a serious business. We actually need to build that traction. We actually need to know our market. So that was like the first big lesson, is actually understanding how to shift focus and how to change your mindset on what really matters, as like how you make decisions. It's like, okay, are we going to service the finance industry, or are we going to service the NFT industry, or actually we're going to do like podcasts? Like what is that end user problem we're solving, and who are they? Can I name them? What do they do every day? What's my ideal customer profile? So now we're starting to go on that journey of understanding where our business actually fits in. And early on, like
If I
fine,
could interject,
yeah,
sorry, if
sure.
I could interject there.
So,
Um, how did you learn to do that? Is that just trial and error of just like trying to figure out that you should probably do this, or did you have like mentors to say that you guys should probably think about doing like this discovery first? And like, was there a process that you went through? Or was it just you happened to stumble across it from trial and error, getting it wrong a couple of times and figuring it out?
sure. I mean, like I said, it's building the relationships up in the industry first, and
Okay.
then using like our angel investors to effectively coach us into this, to really sort of narrow us down to something that could actually be sellable, investable.
Okay.
And that really picked on some of my strengths, which sounds quite naive, but it's just reading and writing. Very, very simple. I really love to write, and I think that's the best way for me. Some people like to draw, some people like to have conversations. I really like to write, and when I write down stuff, my mind opens up, and I can really describe the ins and outs of how stuff works and how the market works and who that user is, and describe that user. And that's really important. And that's something I learned from when I started my PhD, was actually every day you need to write something. Write about what you read. Write about what you're doing. Why is that important? And that sort of has been with me for a long time, and I'm always writing stuff. I'm always making my notes, always jotting down my ideas, and to actually turn it from just, hey, I'm just like outputting stuff, to I'm actually using this to actually deliver value, is it's extremely satisfying. And like putting those two pieces together, I didn't really understand how until I actually dipped my toe in the water and went to try and build a business and get funding for it.
Okay, nice. I'm definitely a drawer. I think
Yeah,
anytime I need to explain something to someone, I'll get the notepad out and I'll draw a
yeah,
scribble of it or a diagram of it or something like this.
yeah. It's great. It would be good to publish those things as well, and then you start to think like, if I published it, what would be the response? Right? And then you start to draw differently. Right? So yeah, it's the same process as like going to your investors and saying, hey, I've got this great idea. It's like, well, why is it so good? And you're like, let me write down differently how I do it next time, right? And that's I think that's probably the sort of learning experience that you need. You really need to, jump in and figure out for yourself how it actually works.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other skills that you think people should look at, or anything you really think someone would benefit from to become a founder or to become a CTO of a Web3 project? Because I speak to people all the time. It's obviously Web3 is super entrepreneurial industry. It feels like, maybe it's not everyone, but it feels like everyone I talk to wants to found something for themselves at some point in the future, where they have ideas or not. Everyone has that. Most people I chat to anyway seem to have that kind of like spirit about them. If you were like sharing any advice there, like, is there anything that you think people really need to think about, or like skills they should develop alongside the ability to be able to, talk through ideas and really like go on that like product discovery kind of journey? Anything else that you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I would encourage anyone to do it. I mean, it's definitely satisfying. There's lots of surprises. It's good fun. It's hard work, of course, but you're never going to start, your founder journey without hard work, right? It's like, oh, it'd be great to run a business someday. It's like, have you tried to run a business? Do you know how difficult it is? So you really need that motivation. I think that grit and determination to actually deliver on something. You get people around you that really put you down and sort of say, actually, guys, this is not good what you're doing, or and you get a mix of opinions, and some people love what you're doing, right? And it's just finding those right voices to work with, to build dialogue, good and bad, right? Some of the best people we talk to are sort of our biggest critics, right? And because of that, and we're like, actually, that's a challenge. I can now answer that, and just finding that dialogue. So I think networking, talking to people, pitching as well. There's a lot of investors out there. A lot of money has been made in Web3, and to the benefit of these investors, they are reinvesting in Web3 as well. They're investing in new projects to actually build more value, build more infrastructure. And a big focus right now for investors is actually they want to find projects that are touching that end user, that are really building that user engagement, because adoption is like outside of crypto is what's needed right now to make this market keep growing. I think we're going to find that from the sort of traditional finance coming into DeFi, but also, you have lots of the social applications. We had the Farcaster launch, which was like really great idea. Had a big hype for about 3 to 6 months, and it sort of petered off a bit. But the concept's there. You have Lens as well, and Base is launching another social app soon. So you're going to see the rise of these types of social applications. So looking at the trends in the industry, you're going to be playing with your ideas, networking, talking to people about them, and seeing actually where you fit in, how you can navigate this industry. And I think just like talking, whether it's drawing or writing or just pitching to investors, I think is some of the most valuable feedback you'll get, because you're going to get people who are going to like say, I've had investors fall asleep on calls just because they're so tired.
Wow.
To investors who are extremely excited, right? It is a whirlwind. It's good fun, and and when you get that thesis right, and you have your credentials, people will want to actually back you and sort of underwrite what you're doing. I think that's when you actually get that sort of response, or start to get those positive responses, and you start responding to people well. For us, good things happened, right? And that's ideally where people want to see themselves, is actually, how can I be adaptable? How can I sort of keep growing, keep learning, keep progressing, get the feedback? What we started out with as a thesis is almost like completely changed. There are a few like key principles, but ultimately, the actual thing that we've produced is different than what we ever thought we would produce, right? Because we keep iterating, we keep learning, we keep, bringing on feedback, working with users, working with our investors, and, really building something which is what we're trying to do, and always trying to do, is just iterating and building toward the market where we want to be. And I think that's like the biggest challenge for any business, is to sort of really get and establish themselves into the new markets, especially in crypto, where it's it's all high tech. You have a great solution. Next week, three other people have a great solution, right? Now you've got AI. It's like 50 people have a great solution. Like, how do you compete in this market, right? And then this is one of those big conundrums people will have all the time. But you know, anything you do, you're always going to have some unique edge to it. So it's all about trying to find like where you can actually fit in and compete.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, thanks for talking us through that. I think there's some really good points in there. Um, Investors falling asleep on calls is probably something fairly tricky to deal with. That I feel like you don't really have the tools for that unless you've been through it, probably. But
It was only
yeah,
one
that's
guy,
very
and I know he was traveling for quite some time, but yeah, he just didn't want to be on that call.
that's crazy. Um, so what if people are looking to join the space? Obviously, as a founder, you must have in a few things even before, but also now in Web3, you must have hired people into your teams, right? I think there's a lot of people who are interested in getting into crypto and working with blockchain now. How does someone like break into the industry? Like, how can someone find an opportunity if they really like the idea of building something cool, similar to say they wanted to get involved in Pangea, for example? Like, how does someone actually go about finding a job for the first time in Web3? Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can share some stories, how we've hired people. And a lot of people are looking for like a dream job or something new and interesting to sort of inspire them, right? And crypto does offer huge opportunities. It's a very technical field. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream. Everybody knows about crypto. Everyone knows Ethereum and Bitcoin, but not many people know about any of the other projects. You start trading, maybe you pick up Solana, right? And that's your interface to the world. But uh, when you're working in the space, it's very easy to be in your echo chamber.
Yeah.
Um, and if you can bring something unique to the table, whether it's you have good socials, you have a good personal profile, public profile, then that goes a long way, especially when you're looking at someone to basically bring on the team. Having that presence already helps a massive amount, especially in crypto. Maybe not so much in the Web2 because they have marketing is like the bread and butter. You have all the sort of Steve Jobs, Andy Cunningham style marketing practices. There is not much of that in crypto, and bring in something that can really help the business with their marketing, just from your personal presence, is extremely important. When it comes to getting yourself known, I mean, one of our best hires, we met at a hackathon. It was quite an amusing story where the team was building. I was one of the mentors at the hackathon. I was invited to be a mentor, and one of the teams was being mentored by someone else, and they came to me and said, "I have no idea what to do with these guys. I think they're absolutely crazy. They're trying to build stuff. They've got no idea what crypto is. Can you just talk to them and give them a little bit of a hint as to what they could do, so at least they could win a prize? They could maybe get in line for a prize." So I went to see these guys, and they were just like talking at me like this, and straight away I was like, okay, specifically what problem you want to solve? So we sat down, and I was like, these guys are absolute jokers. I just drew on a piece of paper like to answer their question. This is a transaction. This is how you build them, and like the guy's like, okay, leave it with me. I'll do this. Anyway, I came back the next morning. They'd worked overnight, and they'd built this transaction builder to basically send transactions on Ethereum as part of their sort of demo finance product they were building. And the guy said to me, he goes, I said, "How are you getting on?" And he's like, "Oh, I have this uh, transaction. I've built it. It's just not working. I'm trying to send it. I don't know. There's like two fields there. Like, why is the value on the transaction and why is the value on the token? I don't understand that, right?" I remember this really well, and I was like, "Okay, this is what tokens are, right? It's just in the smart contract, and the transaction is the value of Ethereum that you're sending. And as soon as I said that, he was like, amazing, thank you so much. And then I was like, do you need me anymore? And he's like, he's off coding away. Anyway, it turns out he won second prize. So he did really well. And yeah, and he messaged me like maybe 6 months after saying, hey, I've just quit my job, would love to work with you. So yeah, and then yeah, the rest is sort of history. He has been with us for a few years now. So yeah, it was really great. And the best thing is like, we're building something interesting and valuable, useful. We're really pushing the bounds of computing. So we're like maximizing the throughput of the CPU, of the bus, of the networking, of the disks. And these are really challenging computer science problems. And when you're building something that has these challenging problems to like a really qualified engineer who's most likely earning good money for these big companies, but guess what they're doing? They're building data entry forms. They're building like the most boring, mundane stuff you could ever imagine. Come to Pangea and literally world is your oyster. You can solve some incredible problems here. So yeah, that's one of the
That's
really
cool.
really cool stories we had. So yeah.
Nice. No, that's cool. It just shows how powerful hackathons can be, right? If you're an
Mm,
engineer.
yeah.
Um, and there's tons that happen right across the industry. Like in all sorts of companies are hosting hackathons like all the time. There's hackathons at all the events. There's tons of online hackathons. Yeah, if you're an engineer and you're looking to break into the space, it's probably one of the best places to start, I would say, to get yourself noticed.
Yeah, and I mean, just whether you're an engineer or not, the best. I mean, for me, the only two things I've seen work is in-person meetups. So in real life, going to the conferences, especially side events. You don't need to pay for the expensive tickets. You can just sign up to side events, and you're going to be networking with some of the best people in the space. And then Telegram. Telegram is like probably the best business development tool, but only ever talk to people that you've met in real life or have been recommended or introduced to you with people you actually know. I've been tricked a few times to sort of be introduced to people, which you then start seeing like the sort of signs of a scammer. But yeah, those two tools, Telegram and in real life meetups, that's the best way to get involved in anything in Web3 right now.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And even on some of the bigger conferences, yeah, I mean, I never buy like a main conference ticket ever, really. I think I've been to one main event, and then the
It's
rest of
not
the time
bear
it's
market
just
anymore. It's a bull market.
maybe
Come
I
on.
maybe I should. Maybe I should. No, I think you're right. I think you just find better conversations at the the side events.
Mm.
I think people maybe go there expecting to just network, meet cool people, and just kind of like see what's going on. So yeah, I always find the better conversations tend to be there. But even if you can't get to any of the like the big conferences and stuff like this, like you'll be surprised at how many small meetup groups there are in local areas for people who are super enthusiastic about crypto. Um, I'd get on. I don't know if you look at this at all, but like crypto nomads. Have you heard of the website Crypto Nomads?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
obviously
use it
tons
much,
and
but yeah.
tons of events on there in any city or any location you can possibly imagine, right? And you can get involved in all their communities and stuff, and that's a super good way of finding like local events and things like this. But yeah, no, yeah, I think all the over the next few years, I think there's going to be more and more opportunity at those in-person events, just purely because of all of the mass messaging and AI slop that gets sent out through people's inboxes and through LinkedIn and Twitter and this kind of stuff, right? Like people just don't respond to it. So actually getting in front of people,
Yeah, it's true.
is way,
I
way
mean,
more.
I'd say that when Farcaster came out, there was like a real buzz about that the idea of having a social network on chain. They were running little hackathons and stuff. And I originally involved. I went to a hackathon for Farcaster to build some of these frames, and straight away I had more followers because I never really do socials or I don't do them very well, but I had more followers and more engagement on Farcaster for the short time I was there than I ever did on Twitter, which is completely pay to play. So it's like,
Right.
as you're seeing these new networks, and Lens is going to relaunch, they're going to be competing with Base's deploy social app quite soon. So actually getting in early on these applications as they start, working with or trying to find a way to interact with these communities on these social networks will be probably one of the best ways to get involved with Web3, uh, if you can't make those in-person events. But yeah, this is definitely, if you have the time to spend on it, then it's definitely, it should definitely give you some rewards, especially to begin with, not just airdrop rewards, but in terms of meeting the right people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're definitely right. And even if you are still then posting on places like X and LinkedIn and some of the more traditional ones, even just you don't have to have thousands of followers, but even if you just start posting your thoughts on places like that and trying to offer value to communities and stuff, actually just getting your voice out there, even that
Mm.
kind of stuff can get you noticed. Really, it would definitely help. Then, say if you apply for something, you send your social links, and it goes the potential employers, potential projects that go across and look. Oh, well, over the last 6 months, you've written nothing but Web3 this, blockchain this, talking about this specific problem that you really want to get involved in. Like, it can be really powerful to link the two together. Um, it's
Yeah,
definitely worth doing.
and for socials, publish pictures, memes, publish videos. They tend to get the most amount of engagement, unfortunately, but they do.
No, that's true. That's true. No, that's true. So what about then? Say if someone say they've landed their first job, like that guy, he's landed his first role in crypto with you guys. How do you then make sure that you build a successful career for yourself? If you don't want to found your own project, you want to work with founders to build cool stuff. Like, how do you build a successful career here? Any tips on what makes you indispensable?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can definitely empathize, obviously, being a founder, with wanting to help other people. It's a much it'd be much more fulfilling at times, especially because when you are the founder, uh, the issue is you have to take responsibility for everything, and you have to learn how to take responsibility for everything as well. You can obviously delegate out roles and responsibilities, um, but ultimately it ends with you, and that's the biggest issue we have as founders is, do I have the time to actually spend and focus and solve all these problems and take responsibility for everything? The answer is no. I need to prioritize, right? And finding people that you can work with who can take responsibility and help you, in that way, is probably the most valuable thing. And that requires, like, building a level of trust, being capable. A lot of people do require, especially in crypto, people who haven't really got the experience in crypto tend to ask a lot of basic questions, which is okay to begin with, but that learning curve really needs to accelerate quickly, because I don't have the time to spend, um, going through this, teaching you all the low level details for you to actually deliver value for the business. So actually, like, taking initiative and building that level of trust where you can take responsibility for things. It's like, oh damn, I have to get this presentation sent out. It's like, cool, leave it with me. I'll do it for you, right? I know how to write presentations. Just give me your key points, and I'll come back to you in like an hour's time. Right? You do the rest. You spend the rest of your day doing focus on your other priorities. Right? So those things are like really helpful. And especially when it comes to the engineering side, a lot of the devil is in the detail. So being able to communicate effectively is extremely valuable, because understanding the differences, between how users are actually using the chain and how let's say the smart contracts are structured, and being able to educate people on the differences. What we do a lot of is visualization of that data, um, but it's the same for like how do I actually build the software to do this. There's a slight nuance between two small things which might mean nothing to you as an engineer at that point, but actually to me, I understand crypto quite well. I could actually give you a lot of great feedback, but it's about being able to give like that digestible information, to be able to accept that feedback, and and that iteration, that rapport building, that trust building, and then that level of responsibility that you can take will increase, massively. But yeah, like for me, it's more about finding people who can save time, not necessarily do a specific role. Like, okay, I'm really good at doing spreadsheets. Like that's good for you, but are you good at taking responsibility for what goes into them and delivering them? Like, who's the end user of that? Is it me or is it someone else? Is it external? And just uh, really being more conscious about your role and what you're producing, is really goes a long way. And that, having like great people around us, we've been able to build a really good team. Having those great people who actually know what you need and know that they can take initiative and do things and come back and report and give valuable information. For me, I can then go into my next meeting and boast about the next set of features that we have. I've not seen those features. I haven't done those features, but because I've got that level of trust, I know we've delivered. They said they've delivered it. I know they've delivered it, and they've given me a picture that says this can only have been done if they've done the work and the research and put the effort in, and they've already got social proof. It's on socials, right? And so all of these things start to fit together, which is really nice. So yeah, like take responsibility if you can, and build trust, build trust early.
So how do you find those people? Because that's quite tricky, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we use recruiters. For some people, we obviously meet people in real life, uh, and we meet people on Twitter now as well. So we start to engage with people on Twitter, local meetups. We yeah, just use a different um, set of mediums to find people. And usually, like you're talking about something interesting, or you're working on something interesting, and you start to talk about it. Uh, there's always going to be someone who's interested. So it's just about trying to find those people who are actually capable and looking for work. Maybe they already have work and they're not necessarily looking. They just would like a better opportunity as and when it comes. Or they want to sink their teeth into, let's say, the next big problem in AI, which we believe we have some great solutions for. We're just looking for some incredible engineers who want to work with us, right? And that's we're in no rush to do that, right? It'd be great to hire now, but you don't want to hire the wrong person. So it's again about building that relationship, and if we can go via a good headhunter who's been able to filter candidates correctly and really picks up on the right fit in terms of like what we do, our values. That saves us a huge amount of time, and you guys can charge a lot of money for it as well. So I hope you guys we
We
expect you to
do.
do that type. We expect you to do that type of work. But yeah, if you find the right person at the right time, that's extremely valuable. But yeah, like as many mediums as possible would be like for us, like the best way to find good people.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And say if you found those people from uh, outside of Web3, as you mentioned, like the an AI engineer, for example, hasn't worked in blockchain, hasn't worked with crypto, or anything like this before, coming in to work with you guys to work on the problem that you guys are solving. Is there anything that you think that person should be aware of about the industry before they join it?
The learning curve is going to be tough. That's your
Okay.
biggest issue is learning curve. You sort of have to believe in a way, but the whole industry is built on its own self belief, and there are fruitions coming, right? It is getting some adoption outside of crypto, like the ETFs. People want exposure to crypto. It's this global asset. Treasuries want to be built around this stuff. The capabilities of building state machines, or like let's say some contract between the two of us, we can build that on chain without even knowing each other, and we can trust each other. The concepts behind this are quite intricate. One of the negative sides of the industry is, there's a lot of marketing. And it's probably not the best type of marketing, right? There's a lot of people in the world, and blockchain is servicing or can service everyone. A lot of people are just in there for incentives for airdrops, right? So you're going to get a lot of marketing around that. And if you don't pay to play, no one's going to notice who you are either. So this is like another necessary evil that you have to deal with. And it's just something that you will see. There's a new project, new token, new chain. You really have to do your due diligence. You really have to understand Like, what is the core value offering of these services that are being built? Why is it so great? Why does it even need to be on chain? We speak with a lot of projects. A lot of them develop, let's say, a decentralized exchange, and they build it directly on chain. Now, what we're seeing is actually people are building off chain, but settling to chain, right? And it seems to be like they want to abstract themselves from the problems of the chain. So it's basically like, you sort of have to trust them. But there is that sort of middleware where it's like, it's not necessarily decentralized, but it sort of is in a way. It's right. They're using the chain for what it's good at, which is settlement, but they're not really using it transactionally. So you have all of these new technologies coming out to try and facilitate some of this, like this sort of different types of sequencer design. So this is like the ordering of transactions. If you can decentralize that and make it fast and make it resistant to, say, like toxic flow, that would enable so many things. But that's one of the current big issues you have in this industry right now. Maybe there's work in zero knowledge that will help solve this problem. But again, this is like, once you go down the rabbit hole and you start to see all these different technologies, there is a reason why people are building them. And some of them people may just give up and say, look, I'm just going to launch this thing whether people like it or not. Or, we're just going to market this token. We're going to pump and dump, which, is one of the common patterns that you have with launching new tokens. But on the flip side, that actually builds a treasury, right? So you have to be very careful as to what the token chart tells you about the project and whether there's longevity in that project as well. So you have to be very aware. But the positive side of the technology is, and specifically what we're using it for, is to orchestrate resources. And that orchestration, can only be achieved amongst people who do not trust each other using cryptography. And blockchains are the best way to sort of, to share that. And then on the other side, making something that is, let's say, counter to cloud, to central points of control, whether it's in finance or whether it's services. So obviously the whole point of Bitcoin, it was really a protest against, printing of more dollars, printing of more pounds, right? And that was like it's a huge issue. In the last 20 years, you've seen the chart. £1 20 years ago is now worth 50 cents or 50p. It's absolutely crazy what's happening with our financial system, and crypto is that sort of libertarian means of trying to solve the problem. In the same way we look at infrastructure, it's like actually all of these cloud-based services, they're consolidating, they're going to be putting their prices up, they're going to be dropping their quality of service, and Pangea is looking at it saying, hold on a minute, why don't we decentralize those resources, enable our node operators to do the same thing at a fraction of the cost, make it resilient, make it high throughput. And the goal is to keep increasing quality, never reduce quality. And that's like, our protest against these cloud services.
I think it's important as well for people to understand how passionate people are in this industry. Say if you work in like traditional Web2, people might be passionate about certain fintech products and stuff, but they don't necessarily like live, eat and breathe every new fintech business that's being launched or things coming out, that kind of thing. Whereas when you come across into crypto, most people could say, oh, well, this is launching next week, this launched last week, this launch went well, that didn't, this tool does this tool does that. Like even people who aren't necessarily technical can talk on the technical side of things to some degree. So I think it's super important for people to be aware of like how passionate people actually are in this industry. And as you mentioned about like the learning curve and how steep it will be, if you don't keep up with that, you can get overtaken quite quickly by people who are just way more interested in it than you might be. That's quite different, I think, to any other industry that I've ever recruited into anyway.
Yeah, I mean, today, a lot of the focus is on what we call mass adoption, is like the road to the first billion users, and all of the focus right now is on how do we get that in this industry. Whether people want it or not, we're going to give it to them, right? That's like the
Yeah.
mentality of the industry right now. But no, like for me, like the like what is the problem you're trying to solve? And blockchain solves the problem of trust. Like two people can trade with each other. What if they don't trust each other? What if they're at war pointing guns to each other's heads? They can still trade quite freely. Blockchain doesn't
Yeah.
stop them. It enables them, right? Once you put tariffs in place, different types of restrictions, you sort of break down economies, whereas you can still pay in Bitcoin. It's not a problem. So, it does enable a lot of people. And those types of problems, it is really worth trying to understand, like, why are we solving these problems? Decentralized compute is another one. Whereas, like, you're seeing with AI, like these data centers are growing like huge. Like they're basically buying data centers next to power stations. So the power station's exclusive right is to basically service the electricity needs of that data center, to basically power all the GPUs it has, to basically power your training and inference. So how do you compete with that? Well, blockchain actually has a solution, and this is like, again, I won't shield myself too much, but if you can effectively pool all of the resources, like the disparate resources, the latent compute, if you can pull those together at the right time in the right place, electricity is produced everywhere in the world, in different parts of the world, whether it's underutilized or not. You can tap into that through, the trusted network of blockchain technology. And that is ultimately, whether we're doing this for RPC, indexing, or AI inference, that is what blockchains are designed for, right? It's not just financial transactions, it's not just meme coins, but it's like building really valuable utility networks where people actually have to adhere to the rules of the protocol. Otherwise, there is an incentive that would say, look, we're going to slash you if you don't provide the correct resources at the right time, as you said you would do. So it is quite a powerful technology. And yeah, like, Ethereum is used to trade dollars all over the world. Like, the launch of stable coins now, like, one of the biggest buyers of US Treasury bills are stablecoin companies, right? It's pretty huge, and that use case isn't going to go away. And and the US has obviously picked up on that. The new admin has basically looked at this and said, well, hold on a minute, they're actually buying Treasury bills, which is they could potentially be one of our biggest customers. And they want to encourage that. So, you're going to see these regulations change. So obviously DeFi, I think, is definitely going to overtake the majority of transactions in the world in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. That's definitely for sure. And we need the infrastructure to support it as well. So, just trying to find out where those key problems are that blockchain actually solves. And instead of like saying, hey, where's my mass adoption application, right? I'm going to force feed you this mass adoption.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Max, over the last like 50 minutes or so, you've you shared a lot of insight actually into obviously Pangea and what you guys are building, your background, obviously some great advice for people looking to get into the space or people who are already here. One question I like to ask everyone is, knowing what you know now about Web3, about leadership, about building teams, building technology, whatever it might be, is there any final words of advice that you'd like to leave us with?
Agree. I think I've given all my advice. But yeah, like, get yourself a therapist. That's probably the best best piece of advice I've given.
Love that. Love that. Well, Max, I appreciate you taking the time to have the conversation with us today. Thank you very much for doing that. If people want to find out more about you, about Pangea, where's the best place they should be going?
Sure, you can find me on X. My handle is Maxim Legg. For Pangea, we're called in_Pangea on X as well. Our website is pangea.foundation. And if you'd like to get involved, there's a link there for Discord. So click that, join the Discord, accept the invite, and just make yourself known to the team. We're doing a lot of stuff on data analysis. We're doing a lot of stuff, especially on building out our sort of validator network. Um, and yeah, lots of alpha is going to be happening on Discord. So it's probably worth being
Sounds
there
great.
if you can.
Sounds great. Go and check it out. Well, Max, thanks for your time. I'll chat to you
Cool.
soon.
Thank you, Jack.
Take care.